our spring agenda, okay? So if you like field trips, we got one planned for you. We'll also do the Minglewood field trip again. So we got several things we're proud to be able to offer, but we didn't have a meeting in December. I didn't think anything about it. I thought it's Christmas time. We got people busy, you know, families coming in, you're gonna travel. So we just skipped it, and little did I know that I think Robert curled up in the ball, was crying, saying, "Yeah, why aren't you having a meeting?" So we did. You know, I thought, okay, I wasn't going to have one today because I had a lot of things to do with the board today. And then when I found out he wanted to have one so bad, then I found out he has been telling everybody that comes to the courthouse where he works now to come on over here. And he brought Scotty with him today. And I'm going, oh, wait a second. You know, he's suddenly doing more than we've been doing. So I got a crowd. I got to do something. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I went to see him. And I just said, Robert, I mean, your wife brought us a stack of letters in a Ziploc bag, I think, wasn't it? How many letters were in there, Nancy?
9.
How many?
About 90.
90 letters in there. And I'm talking, you know, old stuff. And so Nancy's been going through those things. And I told Robert I was going to try to have a program. I wasn't sure what it was going to be, but I thought it was going to be on letters. So that's what I got. Now, I put this together and try to make some sense of it because my mind works in such a way to try to connect these dots. And some of these are going to connect easily, and some of them may be way out there trying to connect. I'm glad Earl's here. He can kind of keep me straight because he knows a whole lot more history than I do. But what I'm going to tell you is that's why we're doing this today. And I really feel charged that we're going to have to maintain this momentum because we've got something going here that I don't want to lose. And so the fact that you keep coming every second Tuesday at 5 o'clock and you put up with this and that you encourage us, then we're going to try to do our best to keep it going because there are a ton of things that are historical about this community, this county, this area of the country that have not been told, or maybe you thought you knew it and maybe you didn't know as much as you thought you did. And this is a place to kind of give you some insight to some of this. Now I'm going to preface this with what 4 of us did last Thursday. I won't spend much time on this, but you need to know it. Because in the newspaper and online, I saw that the people who are across the river in Marion, Arkansas, were working on a project to upgrade their museum. And their museum focuses on a Civil War incident that involved a serious maritime disaster where a boat heading north to bring prisoners, Union soldiers from the South after the war were coming home. The boat that left New Orleans had 300 people on it, something like that, who paid a fare to go home. These are not soldiers. When I got to Vicksburg, all the soldiers who were been released after the war jumped on the boat. Said, I'm going home too. And the boat was designed for 350 people. Over 2,000 got on that boat. And the boilers kind of got stressed and things happened. They stopped in Memphis and did some repair work. And when they got 7 miles north of Memphis, right outside of Marion, Arkansas, the boilers exploded. Bodies went everywhere. People went everywhere. The boat started to list and turn around backwards, and the people were in the back thinking, we're okay. Suddenly the fire started coming at them, and they had to have a second event to jump off the boat and try to save themselves. Anyway, long story short, Marion has the name of the boat, by the way, is the Sultana. There's books back there on that rack. You're welcome to buy one for $20 because the author of that book came and spoke this story to us 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was. Jerry Potter is his name. He's from Milan. It's the same place Bill's from. He's an attorney now. He lives in Memphis area, and he wrote the book and told the story, and that's the first I'd heard of it. Well, now we're making a connection to those folks because we went to see their museum. They've got a $14 million project to take an old high school gym and make them into a huge attraction for their community. They're trying to actually draw 50,000 visitors a year in that little town. And the town's not much smaller than we are. And we've got all this. And we got stories too. So I tell you that in anticipation of me dedicating this program to Patricia and to Robert and to Scotty, because this is kind of, I think, what we need to do, is tell these stories and get the word out. Because there's so much going on here that we need to nurture and hold on to. So, before I start this and see where this goes, questions on what I've told you so far. Okay, I'm gonna call this letters. I didn't hook up my little remote thing, so I'm gonna walk back and forth and kind of advance it. But I'll tell you that a friend of mine sent me this about a month ago. It's a jump drive with letters that have a Dyer County connection that were pulled out of a dumpster in Ohio. And she ended up with them. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a connection on what Patricia did by giving me this stack of letters that we had in a Ziploc bag. And now I got this thing. This thing's full of letters. And so I'm going to try to make this story fit. And if I go too fast, if I start to wander, stop me and ask me a question so I can kind of pull it back to center. Because I call this letters, envelopes, postcards, post offices, and images. Now, did everybody pick up that legal size paper laying back there? You're going to need one.
Oh, I'll pass.
Yeah, pass them out. So let's start this and see where this goes. Does that look familiar, Robert?
Doesn't make it, doesn't make
This is an envelope, and it's written to Mr. Neely, and if you look at the date on it, it's 1919. Now, Patricia, this came out of your house somewhere, didn't it?
It did.
Tell me where it came from.
My mother-in-law gave me a sack of old stuff, and that's just one of the things that were in there. I need to go back to it now that you're talking and see what else I got. But this William S. Neely would have been William Stewart Neely, which was Robert's grandmother's daddy.
Okay. Well, there's a family connection here to this Neely family. I don't know the details, and right now we're still just kind of scratching the surface. But we have an artifact here, and what I think is interesting is I can't tell what the stamp was, but look, it does say Trenton, New Jersey, Dixon Branch, November 4th, 1919. And so we have that document here, along with letters that are inside these envelopes. And so we can start to tell a story because this letter was written. I get a kick out of this. I can't read it very well, but when you start looking at some of these ways that people wrote in those days, if they weren't highly educated, they might misspell a word. Often in these things, the word get, G-E-T, comes up as get, G-I-T. And so it's interesting, too, that there's the date, and this letter is being written to, is it Miss Neely?
It's Mr. He
Mr.
was, their son was a prisoner of war. So if
Yeah.
you look at each one of those letters, the letter itself, and also the envelope, as you go through the stack, you'll see it's been approved by an inspector before they can be mailed out.
And some of these, too, that in this collection actually came from France. Is that right, Nancy?
I'm sorry.
From France?
Most of the
1918 ones, like you said, were censored, and so all he could say was somewhere in France.
Yeah.
And then after the war was over, toward the end of 1918, he saw the 1919 ones apparently were not censored, then he could say where in France he was. He was almost always in France, once or twice in Germany. That particular one was after he had gone back to the United States, and that's why I got a real stamp on it.
Yes, this was written from the States, you know, to the family here. Of course, it's signed by Fred. Fred was obviously part of the war effort in Europe, okay? And this stack of letters that you gave us has a trail, if you could kind of put it together, to tell the story about the Neelys. Now, I don't know this for sure, but something tells me that my conversation with you, Robert, there was a Miss Neely who lived two doors down from me on the highway between Falks and Halls.
That was her husband.
Yes,
Fred,
see?
Lorraine Neely.
Lorraine, that's right. Exactly, right. Yeah. Well, this is how you track things. If you do any genealogy type things, sometimes this will kind of give you a path to go by to look down through this. Anyway, we got that letter from Fred. And this one, let's see here, is from James Neely.
It's James F. Neely, so it's Fred.
Yeah, and I can't read that in here, but it goes to him. It says he's in Dyersburg, Tennessee, USA. Now this is before zip codes and before they had zones for a while. Didn't they remember those days? I'm not sure how old, if I remember that, but you'll notice that you can't read the stamp up there if there was one. It's gone. But this gives you an idea of some of the collections that we have. And
What unit was he in?
I couldn't tell you that.
You don't know?
It was in I could find it for you. He
Yeah,
ended up
no.
as a prisoner escort at the end in 1919. He escorted prisoners back into Germany.
Well, since I put this into a slideshow, I can't blow it up. But if we want to take this down and go find the actual scanned image, I can zoom in on it and see specifics about what that letterhead is there.
Is he originally from Darkan?
Yes.
He
Do
is?
you know Joe Markle?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Do you know where his place is?
where he lives now, out there? Yeah,
That's the Navy farm.
okay,
That was the Navy, my grandmother's father.
okay.
That's part of Neely's Chapel too, so.
Now, don't get me lying on that.
Yeah.
Where is Neely's Chapel?
No, I know where it is when I'm driving, I don't know if I can tell you.
Near Fort Worth?
No, over in.
Then we'll get to the end of this. If we want to go back and pull one up and zoom in on it, I can get you a lot better view of that, because if you're really interested in seeing that, we can go down that road. But I deliberately brought this little exhibit up here for a reason. I'll kind of make this connection too. Now, what you picked up on that legal size paper should be this. I made these today, and I did two things, because I tell people a lot, and some of y'all have been here enough to know that's my favorite artifact, because I can photocopy it all I want to, and I can give it away all I want to. It's the 1936 road conditions map, is what it's called, road conditions of Dyer County. But I like it because all these little triangles in here are schools. And it's interesting to me that Dyer County in 1936 had 81 schools out there. That's a lot of one-room schoolhouses and a lot of small communities, and some people, probably hardly ever came to Dyersburg. They lived and had their subsistence there in that little community. So I put this on the back of this next slide, so you can take it home with you. We went to the Secretary of State's office in Nashville and started outlining all of the post offices, they're alphabetized, and it shows you the date when they were when they opened and when they closed. Because today, we don't have nearly that many. There's 55 on this particular list. And I tried to put down the date they opened, or the year they opened, and the year they closed. And there's some little communities on there that maybe you've never heard of. Templeton, for example. There's a small community north of New Bern, out toward Trimble. It's on there. But I don't know how long they had a post office, but at one time they did. You may have heard me tell the story about Finley. Finley at one time was called Spenceville. And the problem was that all these post offices all over the place, there was another Spenceville in East Tennessee, and the guy who was delivering mail to Finley said, y'all got to do something. We're getting this mail mixed up because there's a Spenceville here in this area and one over on the other end of the state. One of y'all got to change your name. And the guy behind the counter said, well, just call it Finley, because his last name was Finley. And it stuck. So, and sometimes you don't hear that kind of stuff, but as you talk to people who lived it, like Joe Ray, who was the principal down there, he told me that himself. And so sometimes these firsthand explanations, do fit. Anyway, I thought you'd like to have that. It's kind of hard to read in the dark, I know, but that way you can take the map home with you, and you can take the list of all the post offices home with you too. Now that last little check mark there says it was a post office in 1894. I just put a check there because on the Secretary of State's site, one of those places I looked, it listed the ones that were in existence during that year. And there's some little community names that I've never heard of, and I have no idea where they were. Now, when I sent my email out announcing I was going to have this program on letters, I don't know how you guys are getting that anymore, if y'all getting my email. We used to put some in the newspaper, and now they've gone to one day a week. So my news release never got to the paper, but they put it on their Facebook page. And so obviously you heard something because you showed up today. Well, I got one email back from Luann Heath. Anybody know Luann Heath? I don't either. But she's in my email list. And she responded saying, that sounds interesting. I'm sorry, I can't be there. Look at what I bought off of eBay. And she sent me this picture, and it says, right off her email, it says, this is the home of my great-grandfather, Samuel G. Parker, jeweler on the Dyersburg Square for many years, from 1870 to his death in 1927. The house he lived in is since gone. It was on the south side of Court Street, opposite the Greyhound bus station, which, the way I look at it, is where the radiology department is. And I just can't imagine there being a house on that corner. But obviously it was. So this is a postcard. And she found it, wanted it, bought it, and she's got it because it's connected to her family. So there's one person, wherever Luann Heath is, I'm not sure she's in Dyer County or where she is.
Samuel was on the city council. He also the first jeweler in Dyer County.
He was the first what?
First jeweler in
Was he?
Dyer County.
Do you know where his store was?
I can look it up. I've got it.
Okay. Because you've heard of him before.
Oh, yeah. I've corresponded with some of his family.
Okay, good.
We have a couple of things from that store.
Okay, good. All right, then, I looked long and hard for a better picture than this. Do you recognize that building? It was over on Phillips Street. It says Dyersburg City Schools up there, but this is what those of us who are old enough to remember this as the Nell Thomas Orphanage or the Mission Orphanage. And it was a important residence for children for many years until the school system took it. They actually had a school in there for a while. And Croupy
Yeah, John.
was was raised in, he went to school there.
Yeah, he did.
He's one of these people, had a lot of photographs of Dyersburg. There's some history here, and so I want to show you the building. It's since gone, been torn down. That's where the little Habitat for Humanity over there is, off of Bell Street. But I wanted to show you that building because in our collection and looking around at different things that we have, I found this, or Nancy did, and it says Mission Orphanage Home. It's a letter from Nell Thomas, and I'm not sure. November, I think that says 37. I've got it right here, so let me see if I can figure out what it is. Y'all, my eyes are not what they used to be. Can you see a year on that? You're welcome to pass these around. There are in plastic, so you can kind of look at them. So,
37.
37? Well, see, it's written to Jerry Cooper. You know who Jerry Cooper was? He was your congressman. And so she's writing him a letter and saying, this is, thank you for talking to me about the mission orphanage. We sure could use some help. And on page 2, it lists the things that she needs to expand, to make room for the kids, the boys, as opposed to the girls. Things like that are in those letters right there. And in that little package that she's passing around. And again, it's going to be hard to see in the dark. But there's a letter, you can't see the signature, but this is Jerry Cooper's letter back to her, saying thanks for spending time with me. I've got you on my mind. He may have been on that board or something at one time. Did I bring that, Earl?
No, that's probably true. Her daddy was mayor of Dyersburg one time. They called her Sister Nell. If you
Yes.
go to the old city cemetery, that angel,
Yes.
that's her.
Yes. Now, what he's saying there is that Nell Thomas, that we call the orphanage after her because she was so dedicated to it, when she died, well, she helped run this for a long time, but when she died, they buried her in the East Court Cemetery. If you go over there and you see where the Confederate cannon and all that stuff are, you look over there, there's also a monument with a angel that designates her burial site. And several years ago, David Hayes called me and said, Danny, we got to do something because somebody's vandalized the angel. And we did some research on trying to fix it. It was imported from France. And it couldn't be repaired without lots of money. And we did go through Crime Stoppers, trying to find out who did it. But that particular cemetery is not secure. Anybody can go up in there. There's some interesting graves over there. If you haven't been to that cemetery, y'all spend some time over there. But anyway, I think it's neat that we've got a letter from Nell Thomas to our congressman, and then a reply from the congressman back to Nell Thomas. And now the building is gone, but the memories are still there. Okay. I love this one. We have a box that Nancy let me borrow, and it's labeled postcards. So I went through a handful of them and just started scanning some of them to show you tonight. This one, Residence View on Main Street, Dyersburg, Tennessee. Now you tell me where on Main Street you think that was.
That's from Ed Wright's filling station down to Bear Brewer.
That's Masonic on the right there, Masonic Street.
Okay, so Ed Rice would be behind you over here. So I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but Masonic, which is the street that runs from the King Mansion all the way to the football field, okay? That was a pretty busy residential area with houses on both sides for a long time. And this picture, if we're telling you correct, and I can't swear we are, but I think we are, that the photographer will be standing in the middle of the road, and you'll notice the road's dirt, and he's taking a picture of the houses, and I think if we describe it right, This house would be where that downtown service station is, right there. And this road would go down the hill to where the football field is. And so going
So
down
that's
that way.
before the Baird
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Hospital
yeah.
was built?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
hospital was down at the very.
Yes, yes.
That's where you drop down the hill. where those-
Yeah, now at the end down there would be where the Methodist church is. You run right into it today. And you turn right and go beside the Baird Delaney Hospital, and it hadn't been built yet.
What year was that hospital built?
I could
1918.
Now,
So is that with PH White's
Yeah.
mother?
say it again?
So that house is still standing?
Yeah, it's kind of a house, an office, looks like a house. So what you talking about?
No, it's a house. There's a front porch on it like that.
No,
Where is it?
no, this is on Masonic. Masonic, it runs between Security Bank and First Tennessee Bank, or,
Yeah, this is Main Street here. That's Main Street here. It's Masonic this way.
Sort of like you're standing at Security Bank.
the Baptist Church.
Danny, that house is AC Dollars house.
That's the Security Bank.
I don't know.
So if you're standing looking at the place over to your right, he's talking about it right
Yeah, 51 gas station is where that first house is.
Yes, yes, now you're getting it. And sometimes you have to kind of, what I should do if I had my, if I didn't sleep, I should probably take a picture of that corner and say, here's what it looks like then, and here's how it looks today. And one of these days I'll do that. I don't know when, I don't know when.
It's a picture from now.
Yes, yeah, good point. Look here. Look here, y'all. All right.
Dirt roads and a fight.
Yeah. And of course, see, the water tank would have been down there behind the jail. You know where Mark Cleaners is? That was your city hall, and you had that big water tank because you had to have water downtown, because if one building caught on fire, the whole town would go up. Because there were no firewalls and all that kind of stuff. That's an interesting photograph, and it's in our collection here. Now this one is also in our collection. This one is, it says 1933. This is the first high school. It was on this site. Okay? So it's called Dyersburg High School, and you may have heard the story that the cornerstone of this building at some point, because this is the first of several buildings on this site, the one you're in right now is the fourth one. If this is the first one, the second one was built in front of it, and they joined with a breezeway in between. And then they built another one behind it that would face College Street right back here. And almost all of them were built the same way, because in these days, you didn't have air conditioning. And so you had tall windows, and you had a basement that had windows, and of course you got this pergola thing up the top, whatever you want to call it, to let the hot air go up. So when you open the windows here, if hot air rises in science class, you learn cool air takes its place. So if you're sitting beside the window, you got a breeze because of the way it was built. And that was the first one. It was called Dyersburg Male and Female College. The cornerstone, when they tore this building down, is sitting right there on the sidewalk, right out here. Still there. Somebody, I don't know who did it, decided we need to save that, and so it's sitting right outside out there. This is a cool artifact as well. I thought about bringing that inside, but I don't think anybody's going to steal it because it's so heavy. But it's a neat artifact. This is the one you're in now. This is another postcard.
Was the one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. This is a postcard of this one. Now, this building was built in 1939, which is not, it's still pretty old. And it's in great shape considering. But it was built by the WPA during the FDR administration. I think our Congressman Jerry Cooper had a lot to do with that. I could be wrong, but I think that's why it looks the way it does. I think that's why it was located where it was. because it had all the amenities. But when they built it, it didn't have air conditioning. And so in the auditorium, they have a big crank inside on the walls, and you put this big key in the wall and crank it, and all the windows will open. That's how they had cool air in that building before the air conditioner. So a lot of history here, and it's a pretty good picture of the choir room here in the back. This is where the stage is. This is the auditorium. Of course, that's the front door. That's the door you came through right there. This is the library. But I like having these kinds of postcards. We've got several. I'm not going to show you every postcard we've got. Here's your Baird Brewer Hospital, and you can see it's on that corner, but you see how old those cars are? And if you go down the hill, you're going down McGoy, going down toward the football field, the backside of this building. But this one had been remodeled. We have another picture that shows this section right here was not built, and the front door was like a house. It had steps up to the porch, and you went inside. So if you go down to Larry White's office, that's White and Associates Insurance, and you go inside those doors, the first thing you do is go up 3 steps. Those are the original outdoor steps before they added that section.
Danny,
Yeah.
back in the very back, on the left corner there, on the next floor up,
Yeah.
Dr. Thomas Banks told me that was the operating room. And the reason they chose that one, it had windows on
Yeah.
both outside, and they had good natural light.
Yeah.
They didn't have good electric lights at that time.
Well,
So
see-
when they built it, that was the OR
And it's got one of the oldest elevators
in the country.
in the country. It still operates. I mean, it's not for the public, but they use it. Larry White's office is right there in the corner. And several years ago, I was helping him do something with a digital presentation he wanted. And I'd go over and visit him, and he said, "What do you know about this building?" I said, "Well, it was a hospital. My brother and my sister was born in this hospital." He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to show you something." So he picked me up here, and we walked to the back of that building and went back where Bill's talking about, but not on that floor, it was on this floor. And when we got to the very back, there was a break room, kind of glass enclosed, and it had coffee maker, and drink machines, that kind of stuff. And to the left was a conference table, a conference room. And we stood there, and I'm looking at that going like, why is he showing me this? He said, "You see that little place to get snacks and things there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That was the nurse's station." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "You see that conference table over there in that conference room, right underneath what you're talking about?" He said, "Guess what happened in there?" I said, "I don't know, Larry." He said, "I was born in there." He said, that's where they delivered babies, in that hospital there. So he's in the building where he was born. And so you get those connections by talking to people who actually lived it. Yes, ma'am.
Did you go up to the top floor?
That's a good question. We've talked about that because the top floor is accessible.
And
Yes.
it has never been redone.
But I think
Right.
you have to have an escort.
Yeah, it has never been redone.
It's still the old blue-looking tile up there, and I mean, nobody's even gone up there and cleaned it up. It's nasty. But
Yeah,
they store records and stuff up there.
I've
and
never been
it's-
up there.
But it looks like an old hospital.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
But the original name was the Udaly building. It's got a marker on the side of it.
Yeah, it's
Baird
called
Delaney.
Baird Delaney. And for some reason, I guess the doctors used to buy these buildings, I think. And I think somehow or another it became the Baird Brewer. And I guess the Dr. Brewer is part of that. I don't know the story exactly.
The partnerships have changed.
Yeah,
in that.
yeah.
Before that, it was a
So
Hosmer.
today, the doctors
Yeah.
build it.
I don't know about that.
What's that, Robert?
He won't know the doctors built it.
Dr. Baird was involved after they bought it after it was the Hosmer Hospital and converted it. But it was a house before, like Danny said. And when they built that and turned into Baird Delaney, they also had the Curry's Funeral Home building was a nurse's home.
And the
But-
nurses would live over here in the, what's Curry's,
Yeah.
and then work down at the hospital down the hill.
When they converted the Hosmer Hospital to Baird Delaney, Dr. Watson that had the sanitarium on the corner where the Baptist, yeah, the fellowship hall is now, he shut that down and went in with some other doctors, I don't remember the names, and put in Dyersburg General Hospital over on East Court.
Yeah.
So from 1918 to 1928, we had 2 hospitals here, and between the 2 of them, we had more hospital beds available than they did in Jackson.
That's also a postcard. There's your hospital that was called Parkview when they built it. When it opened in 1957, I believe it's the year. And it's, you probably wouldn't even recognize it today. There's been so many additions to it. They painted it, reconfigured it, and they had the emergency room in the back door for a while. Now it's on the front. It's now a part of West Tennessee Healthcare. And it was Parkview for a long time. What I thought was interesting when I was a kid is the street in front of that hospital is not Parkview. That's Tickle. Parkview was the next one. And it was there basically because you go down that road to the west to go to the park where the golf course was. Now that particular street in front of it, not directly in front of it, what we call Parkview, help me here, Steve, that was once called Lauderdale, correct? Yeah, Lauderdale. And most people don't know that. There's a map on the wall back there that shows that street named Lauderdale. When they changed it, I guess it's when they put the park and the country club, because your country club was obviously in the country. See, out from downtown. That's also a postcard. Most of you recognize this is a postcard as well. This is the Hotel Cordell Hall, which is now, which bank is that? Security Bank? Yeah. David Hayes told me that when he was president of Security Bank, they bought that building for $200,000, which is a bargain. But it's got a lot of issues with it. But look here. You know who Cordell Hull was? Yeah. He was the Secretary of State during the FDR administration during the war. And so our congressman, Jerry Cooper, and Cordell Hull and FDR were pretty tight. And so our congressman rose in the House of Representatives to be the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, which is where the money flows through. So he was an important person. We got a little picture of him over there. And we do have some of his letters as well, including the one that he wrote to Nell Thomas. I like this because it says there's 80 rooms and 80 baths and has circulating ice water.
Yeah.
Which I don't know exactly what that means.
That means you had a hot and cold.
Does that
water.
mean like a water cooler?
You'd have cold water.
And it was fireproof.
Like
Well-
a swamp cooler.
They would build them like if they were fireproof because it's all made out of concrete.
Oh,
Pretty
it's
much.
built like a fortress.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of where it's built.
David, I love this one. David told me when he was still president over there that they had trouble with their elevator. If you'll notice, in that bank there's one elevator. There's an old elevator in the Baird Delaney Hospital that's not being used by the public. First Citizens has 2 elevators. Okay? Well, David, his elevator would malfunction and people get stuck in it. So he had to get it fixed. And you know, they came and fixed that thing. And he said, Danny, so you may not know this, but that particular elevator is like a hydraulic piston underneath it. And so that elevator is sitting on a piston that goes down in the ground. And it has to go down there 6 stories deep to push it up to the top floor. which I think, and they've repaired it, it works like a charm, so if you go get in there, you're not gonna get caught. But there was a time when they were having trouble with it, and they had to spend pretty good money to get that thing fixed. That's a neat little, postcard as well. And I did this one for Bill. This is the hut. I think it's a picture. I'm not sure this is a postcard, but we have it in our postcard stash here. It's on Lake Road. And of course, back then it wasn't called Lake Road. Anybody remember what that road was called before they widened it? It was called Nichols.
Nichols Brickyard.
And there was a Nichols, there was a brick manufacturing facility right close to that, across the street from it, I guess.
Where the baseball field is.
Yeah, back up in there. And so it was the place to go eat. Most people say, I'm going out on Lake Road because that was the road you took to go to the lake. And that's why it ended up being called Lake Road. Just like Troy out here, that goes from McGoy up all the way out to past the Nissan dealership. It evolves into Parr Avenue out there. But it was called Troy for a reason. Guess where you were going when you got on that road? You were going to Troy. So that's why it was called Troy. Anyway, this was famous for their food. Jimmy Noonan ran it. We do have postcards that show it a little bit later, some pictures inside and as well as outside. And it probably burned, I guess, 1 or 2 times, didn't it? They had to rebuild it.
Yeah.
But I remember going there when I was younger, and that's where Maple Ridge Manor is today. But that's a neat little.
That was a favorite place for the boys down at the air base.
Say it again?
The boys down at the air base used to love to
Yeah.
eat there.
Yeah. All right, Residence Bo's Pillow. This one you might recognize at the north end of Troy,
Yeah.
where the boulevard kind of comes back together right there.
Right.
And Bo's Pillow was a banker in town. And there was a time when all these old homes were featured on postcards. And so when people would communicate to the postcard, they would go to their rack like that back there and pick out whether they want a picture of the courthouse or somebody's house or the train station or a hotel, and they'd buy these postcards and put like a 1 cent stamp, 2 cent stamp on them and write the note on the outside and just send the card. Do we do that today at all? Anybody know last time you mailed a postcard? I can't think of one.
I remember Ben Franklin was the last one that had rack postcards. I remember. I bought all of them in there.
Well, I can tell you this, when I got involved with the Historical Society in 2004, the very first fundraiser we had was done by Judy Patton. They took some of these old pictures and created a book of postcards. They're back there in that rack, and we still sell them. We still got some. So if you're interested in using a postcard to communicate with your friends and neighbors around the
Not
country.
all of them are postcards, but most of them are. They got them from me. But
Yeah, well,
that guy with the boat, that's not a postcard. That's from a larger boat.
well, it's turned into a postcard.
Yeah, it was turned into a postcard,
Yeah.
but it wasn't original.
Yeah, right.
Now that one, Bo's Pillow, he was a banker and he ran off with the money, and they let him come back, but he eventually killed himself. There are
Well-
letters written all about that at the state archives.
Now, isn't there a Bose Street down there by Dyer County Central? I think it was named after
He was
him.
a prominent guy, you know.
Yeah.
But he was, I think he was in with the gangsters going on during the 20s and 30s.
Oh, really?
Well, they said that Al Capone used to stay there on his way between Chicago and Memphis.
You what, Robert?
Pillow, was it Pillow Street?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
That's over in Milltown. isn't it?
Troy.
Here's one of the more beautiful homes in town. Anybody recognize that?
The Haggathorn.
She's not paying attention.
Yeah.
Your house.
Everybody used to think there was a swimming pool on top of that
And there is when it rains.
house. Yeah. I think they call that a waiting
Is it, maybe we need to have a meeting, a historical society meeting in your house, so you can kind of tell us the history of this place. But a lot of postcards like that around, and that is one of the more recognizable homes in Dyer County. It is on Lake Road. It used to be called Nichols.
That's still a national road.
Interesting things too. So, now here, this is an envelope that was used. That little symbol there, it's Private Harold McCormack, and he's written from the U.S. Army Air Base in Dyersburg, and he wrote it to, I guess it may have been his wife, in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was postmarked February 1943, and you'll notice it says free.
Yeah.
Because he was serving in the air base at Halls, and probably would stay here a lot too, because that was kind of one of the deals about that air base being built down there, is that it was going to have a Dyersburg post office address. So we've got several of these, and
That 853rd helped fight the 1942 flood when it happened.
well, and so that's why I got this up here. I'm glad you said that, because I brought this up here on purpose. And when I showed you that little jump drive a while ago with all those letters that were found in the dumpster, one of the ladies who's doing a commemorative to the Rona, because the 853rd, here,
Yeah.
these guys were engineers trained to build runways and things
Trained you.
at the air base in Halls, and they picked those guys up during the war, and they went to Europe, not to fight, but to build more runways and support the World War II effort. Without telling the whole story, they were on a boat from northern Africa going to the Middle East to build runways, and their boat was sunk, and over 60% of the 853rd died. And that was a secret, and I'll tell you that story at a subsequent second Tuesday meeting. I'm not going to tell it to you today, but I will tell you that the people who commemorate the Rona, that's why this is sitting here, they have created a documentary. It's called Rona Classified, because it was kept a secret, and they've just completed the documentary explaining why it was hush-hush after they sunk and died, because a lot of the family members had no clue until later. And the lady who sent me this jump drive with all the letters that somebody found in the dumpster in Ohio, she is determined to come back to Dyersburg. She's been here a couple times. She spoke at the air base in Halls. Is Sean still here? Yeah. Yeah, Sean and I have had lunch with her at Bozo's over in, is that Mason?
Mason.
Yeah. Yeah, she loves Bozo's. And she sent me a magazine that she found in Connecticut when she was living up there that showcased the bus stop, because it had been repurposed. And I talked to her the other day, she's determined to come, and when she comes, we're going to tell this whole story, okay? But what I want to show you is we've got several letters that are part of that 853rd engineering group that died in the Mediterranean, and we've got letters that tell the story of people, because they weren't from Dyersburg or Dyer County, they were from all over the country. They came here to train. They were doing the B-17s down there, and these guys were trained to build runways and airports and that kind of thing for the war effort. It's a really interesting story, so stay tuned for that. We'll tell that one later. Here's another one that was done. I like this one because, see, now it's got a little, logo there on the envelope. Look where it was mailed from. It came from Lennox in 1943, and again, it was labeled as free. So wherever he was staying, he may not have stayed in Dyersburg all the time. He must have stayed in Lennox for a while. And there was a post office down there.
They stayed everywhere. I have a face directory showing where they lived here in Dyersburg. 1942.
Yeah.
Those are the officers.
And one more, this one's handwritten, that says about the same thing. Again, it's Dyersburg, February 4th, 1943. It says free here, no stamp on it. And it does say U.S. Army Air Base, Dyersburg to Cincinnati. So these are the ones that were found in a dumpster that we're proud to have. And one more, I like this one, because when I was a kid, if you wanted a letter to get there quickly, you paid a little extra and you sent it airmail. And I don't think we even think about airmail at all today. And I don't know how much more an airmail stamp would have cost as opposed to a regular mail stamp. I don't know. But you can see it's the same guy, in the same place, sent to the lady in Cincinnati.
Do you happen to have the letter to this envelope?
Yes.
I'd like to look at that.
Well, okay, just to kind of give you a better feel for what we're talking about here, I'm very willing to pass around some of these are the letters you gave us, if you want to look at them. Don't try it on just yet, Steve, hang on just a second. These, I think these may be yours too. You're also welcome to come look at our postcards. But what I'd like to show you, if you'll just bear with me for a second, because I do try to hang on to these things. In my Historical Society folder, I've got a folder here called McCormack Letters from Michael Walsh. And Michael Walsh is the leader of the Rona Survivors Association. I want you to look at what I was in here. Okay. Here's all the letters that we've got digitized that were found in that dumpster. And we haven't gone through them all. Nancy's gone through a lot of what Patricia gave us, but we've got our work cut out for us here to do this. So what I'm trying to say is there's a real connection to what we've got and what we need to do to go through these things and try to tell the story and put the pieces together. I hope I haven't confused you too much, and I hope you can walk out of here with a little bit more information about what we do and how we do it. So I'm going to stop right there and tell me if you've got questions or comments.
I think Tim Bivens was that correspondence with the.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this. Yeah, I got to get, we'll try to get them their own copies. Okay, there's still coffee on. I'm not sure if you go open the door. If you want to take a tour of the museum, we'll be glad to open it up for you. Oh, one other thing, Bill, you forgot to remind me. We want to recognize our more substantial donors to the Historical Society. White Associates, Dave Cook. Now, Dave Cook and I went to high school together. He lives in Springfield, Missouri, and contributes to us. Ann Yarbrough, McCone, Carol McDowell, Donald Watts, Security Bank, Terry McCright, Helen Enochs, First Citizens National Bank, John and Martha Lanham, as well as Bill and the people at Maple Ridge. We're entertaining ways to give back to the membership. And so if the board, if we do what we said we were going to do about an hour ago, we're going to try to organize ourselves into some projects that we need to get done here. And we may be saying, okay, we got members who might want to come up here and participate and help us take documents out of old file cabinets and clean them and inventory them and archive them in acid-free boxes to protect them for the next generation. Maybe you want to come and help supervise changing all these lights into LEDs, or to help me work with the contractor to upgrade that projector and things like that. A lot of things we could be doing, and we don't want to do more than just have the board do it, we'd like to have your participation as well. Okay, I think I've rattled on long enough. Any other comments or questions at all? Now, let's go back, because I think we've decided we're gonna have another program, wherever Robert went, next, okay, there you go, second Tuesday of February. Not sure what the topic will be, but if you have a suggestion on something you'd like for us to research, there's the guy that knows Dare County forward and backward. But we'll put something together that we hope will be beneficial to anybody who wants to come. So share the information and bring your friends with you. We'd love to see you. Thank y'all very much.